So we've dealt with Bull Run, we've dealt with the 7 Days campaign. Well, now Lee is going to attempt to move this war north. He feels like if he can infiltrate the north, he can really grind the north into staying very busy, defending its own territory, and he can do more of a war of occupation of the north and boost the morale of his own troops. So he moves the war to Antietam, which is north of Washington, D.C. in Maryland, in a little town called Sharpsburg. Okay? The Union general is going to be George B. McClellan. Lincoln has not replaced him yet. That's coming. The Confederate general is going to be Robert E. Lee. Okay? This is Lee's emergence into the battle scene. Okay? He's been in sort of an office job supporting President Jefferson Davis in the Confederacy. Well, now we see him in the on the battlefield. So Robert E. Lee finally makes an appearance. Luck was on the side of the Union, however, because as they're marching to Antietam, they literally, one of the Union troops literally stumbles on a pack of cigars around which is wrapped a battle map of the Confederate plan. So he picks it up and he gives it to his commanding officer and says, "Look what I found." And they are so blessed to have found this Confederate battle plan because it unwraps everything the Confederates are planning to do at the Battle of Antietam. So things really fall into place for the Union, okay? Because McClellan can really dissect what Lee is planning to do, and he can sort of emphasize and call upon those weaknesses in Lee's line and really put his troops heavily in place to sort of divide and conquer, okay? So that's what the Union is able to do. They're able to divide the Confederate ranks and win the day. This is the bloodiest single day of the war, okay, Antietam. So it's a really ugly, ugly day. Not pretty. Now, here's how it plays out. So Sharpsburg is here in the middle, okay? And Lee basically takes his troops and he surrounds the town, okay, to the east and to the north. Now, McClellan takes his troops and he heavily fortifies to the north and to the southeast. He's going to put Hooker up here to occupy Jackson because he knows Jackson's troops. You know, we know how strong and how durable Jackson is, the stone wall. So he's going to put Burnside down here to really concentrate on Toombs because he knows that's the weak link in Lee's line. And Burnside is going to, and that's where we get the term sideburns, by the way. He's going to take Burnside down here and he's going to try and split Lee's line right here, and that's what works. So he comes in here and he splits Lee's line. It causes complete chaos. Lee never sees it coming, and McClellan's able to win the day. All right? Now, the outcome of this is that the Confederates retreat. And they retreat south across the Potomac River, south of Washington, D.C. again. And we have them on the run. We've got them on the run. We can finally, if we just pursue them, we can capture them and perhaps end the bloody war. And Lincoln is very excited, except that the Union troops fail to pursue. McClellan pulls them back and he wants to regroup and he wants to take account of what he's got. And Lincoln gets very upset and angry, and this is where he fires McClellan, and they have a huge falling out. So much so that McClellan will wind up running against Lincoln in 1864 for the presidency. So Lincoln does capitalize on this moment because he was looking for that victory to issue his Emancipation Proclamation, because he needed that victory to move forward in order to give the North a moral cause. So he does issue the Emancipation Proclamation. Now, the Emancipation Proclamation does several things, but the one major thing that it does one major thing, let's put it that way. It does one major thing. It frees the slaves in states still in rebellion. That is key, okay? Still in rebellion. Those slaves are free. However, if you're in a border state, Maryland, Delaware, Kentucky, Missouri, those areas, your slaves are still intact. They're unaffected. Okay, you can still keep your slaves because he doesn't touch the slaves there. It was too important to keep those states loyal to the Union, so he didn't want to tick anybody off there. And in conquered areas, so areas in northern Virginia that the North had conquered, or in Tennessee that the North had conquered with Grant's army at that point, those areas were unaffected by the Emancipation Proclamation. Those slaves were not free. Now, the Emancipation Proclamation was heavier in theory than it was in practice. Remember that the Confederacy considered themselves a separate country. We did not in the North. The Union did not consider them a separate country. Lincoln did not consider them a separate country. But the Confederacy considered themselves a separate country. What right did Lincoln have to issue a proclamation affecting their laws? So in practice, this Emancipation Proclamation really meant very little. However, a lot of slaves were able to leave the plantations and journey to the North. Okay? There was really very few people at this time holding them to the plantations because so many of the men were off at war. So the North now has a moral cause. So all these free men journey north, and what are they going to do when they get there? Well, a lot of them want to join up with the army. So a lot of them join the Massachusetts 54th, which is a regiment of all black soldiers. Now, they are volunteers. This is not a drafted regiment at all. It's not used with conscripted soldiers. It's all volunteers. But by 1865, over 180,000 African American men would serve in the Union Army. So quite a large number. And 22 would go on to win Congressional Medals of Honor in this war. Not all of them win them right after the war or during the war. A lot of them win them posthumously after they have died, or they win them well after the war was over. Congress and the president recognized later, future presidents would recognize later, that these men served with great valor, and they would award them a Congressional Medal of Honor well after the war was over. But 22 men for their service in the Civil War, black men, would win the Congressional Medal of Honor. Over 38,000 died in service to this Union Army. So, next. The Massachusetts 54th was found by Massachusetts Governor John Andrew, and he was an abolitionist, and he wanted very much to find a way for African Americans to serve the Union and to have a great purpose. So he handpicks Colonel Robert Gould Shaw to command the Massachusetts 54th. And his character is made very famous in the movie Glory, and I would encourage you to watch that. It's a very good movie. Most famously, this group saw action at a battle at Fort Wagner. And it was not a successful day for the Union. They did not win the day, and Shaw was killed in action at that battle. But that's where they most famously saw action. They fought in well over 100 battles. The Massachusetts 54th, small skirmishes here and there, but they were quite successful, and we owe quite a lot to them. So that's that.